Hello, this is Rachel Livinall. This season, we're going to be diving into other cities all around the state of California, hearing young people's stories on all topics concerning the pandemic and youth. Today, we traveled just a little ways south, about an hour's drive from Merced County, to hear a story from Ishan Singh. Ishan describes the leadership in Fresno County, or lack thereof, from YLI's youth media program, The Know. You're listening to COVID-18, a podcast that explores young people's experiences during the pandemic.
A genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a molder of consensus. These wiseful words were once spoken by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an American minister who came to be one of the greatest leaders this world has yet to see. These are just the leaders the world has seen, the leaders that have been spoken about through history and time. But what about the leaders that reside in our communities? What about the leaders that live within our cities? Unrecognized leaders that have a vast impact upon our lives. What about the leaders within the city of Fresno? My name is Ishan Singh, and I've walked amongst the leaders of Fresno. The individuals that shape our society for the better or for the worst. You see, we've given leadership the definition of the action of leading a group or a people or organization. But in reality, it's much more than that. Leadership isn't only about being the top dog in society. It isn't about being worshipped by others. It isn't about having your name be remembered. Leadership is about planting yourself within the ground so you can raise others high past the sky. It's about caring for those around you, those who live across the city or those who live just down the street. Roan Gordon, a student from University High School in Fresno, has worked extensively in political and social activism since middle school. Roan describes what she thinks a leader should be in Fresno.
So, especially for the city of Fresno, I think it's important to have someone who's lived in the community and who can relate to a lot of the parts of our community. And so that looks like a number of different things for different people. I would say that I look for someone who can listen to the majority of the people of Fresno and all of the diversity that we have in Fresno and kind of wrap it into something that they can then take forward and move forward with Fresno, especially with the rise in young leadership just in this recent year and the rise in, social media activism. I think it's really important to have those youth voices, and those youth voices align with a lot of the voices in Fresno.
As Roan speaks about diversity, she also brings up the question of inclusivity and the importance of all demographics being presented on a leadership platform. The most recent case of this misrepresentation has been shown in the police brutality acts. Roan explains Fresno's particular problem with policing.
Right, so I think there's been, obviously a lot more conversation about just more progressive things happening in the Fresno area. But I think something that has really been a struggle for our Fresno community is policing. And even before the incident with George Floyd this year, we've had a lot of police brutality cases in Fresno. And it's actually, I think it's very interesting because the national movement of police brutality that we were experiencing, that we still are experiencing, is aimed towards the Black community, right? The Black public. And in Fresno, we don't have as large of a Black population. So we actually have a lot more Latinos who are discriminated against from police officers.
This, paired with the position of Fresno's mayor, Jerry Dyer, and policing, has been a very prevalent controversial issue spoken about. Previously, being the chief of Fresno's police department, Mayor Dyer's beliefs and biases must be questioned. As a leader within a community, it is essential to represent a collective population rather than a selected portion. In my conversation with Roan, we touched on Dyer's potential influence when it came to policing.
One thing I don't agree with is just
having a mayor who is a police former just like supervisor, it's a fair world. There's no regulation saying that you can't do that, but you can say that you represent a community and you care for all values, but in reality, you will know that you're biased towards, again, in Dyer's case, the police. And just like research has shown that he's tried to put down various measures, and anything that kind of looks at policing and the funding that they're doing, he automatically starts campaigns to shut those down.
While speaking with Roan, we discussed the background of Mayor Jerry Dyer himself, being a white 61-year-old man who belongs to the Republican Party. He has no idea or awareness about the experience of POC within Fresno. He does not know what it means to be a person of color within Fresno, and all the disadvantages and oppressions that can come with it. But even so, there's more to Fresno's leadership than just the mayor. There's the problem of politics. Many of Central Valley's politicians are making choices that don't truly support the betterment of the community that they represent. Roan gave some insight about individuals that she believes are moving in the opposite direction of representation and are not making effective use of the positions they are given.
Honestly, someone I would have to say who's a congressman in my area, in a district really close to me, is Jim Costa. He's been in office for a really long time, and he's a moderate Democrat, and has made some conservative decisions and just moderate progressive decisions, and just things that don't really seem to be impactful. I just feel like he's more of someone who's focused on having a career as a politician rather than serving your community and serving the people as a politician. I would say that's a reoccurring pattern in Fresno, is there are a lot of moderate Democrats, and there are a lot of people who try to be a bit more progressive and don't really make it.
Which brings it back to the decisions being made currently, and the officials who are putting them into action.
Andrew Jans, I thought he was a great candidate. He was running for Congress, right, against Nunes, and then he lost, and then ran for mayor against Dyer and lost. But I thought, he was a great candidate. Also, Jerry Dyer, I'm not a huge fan, setting aside, his sexual allegations, just the amount of funding that he puts towards the police system, and the way that he's been governing West Side Fresno. It's just sad, you put so much money into the system. You give like the police officers an indoor gym when they have enough money to afford a gym membership already, and you don't even blink at the incredible impoverishment of West Side Fresno. It's sad.
The evidence is clear. There are actions that leaders take that both harm and strengthen the community, but all in an objective way. So the question here is, how do we make sure our issues are put at the forefront and dealt with correctly? To answer that, have your voice be heard. Advocate for what you believe is just and unjust. Make use of your constitutional and human rights, and speak for those who don't have the same. But above all, become a leader within the community in which you reside. Take action and help serve those around you in a way that not only benefits the integrity of our leadership system, but also benefits the morality of those who represent us. Become the next mayor of Fresno, the next member of Congress, the next Martin Luther King Jr. Become who you want to be, who you are meant to be. This is Ishan Singh, signing off from The Know, located in Fresno, California.
Next week, we'll travel down south to Long Beach as a young man describes his hardships and point of view on the pandemic, especially during a socially controversial time. This is a production of the Know Fresno and Youth Leadership Institute. I'm your host, Rachel Livenall.